true. Nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed them, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of acute hearing. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then I am mad! Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but, once conceived, it haunted me day and night. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with film over it. I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man during the whole week before I killed him. Every night about midnight I turned the latch of his door and opened it oh so gently. And then when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out. Then I thrust in my head. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour as I placed my head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. And then when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. I undid it so much that a single ray fell upon the vulture eye, and I did this for 7 long nights. But I found the eye was always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was nothing the old man who vexed me but his evil eye. Upon the 8th night I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. To think that I was opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for I moved on the bed, suddenly, if startled. Now you might think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch, and with the darkness. So I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept on pushing it, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern. My thumb slipped upon the fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying, "Who's there?" I kept still and quiet, and said nothing. For the whole hour did not move a muscle. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was a groan of mortal terror. His fears had been ever growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but he could not. He had been saying to himself,
"It's nothing but the wind in the chimney."
He had been trying to comfort himself, but he had found them all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and then enveloped the victim. I resolved to open the lantern a little, a very, very little crease in the lantern, so I opened it until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out from the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled my very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct precisely upon the damned spot. Now I say there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum that stimulates the soldier into courage. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. First of all I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the arms, the legs, and the head. I deposited the body parts underneath the mattress so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could detect anything wrong. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still as dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 2 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was in my own dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure and undisturbed. In enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought them chairs into the room and desired them to here rest from their fatigues, while I, in my wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own feet upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them, but ere long I felt myself growing pale. My heart ached and there was a ringing in my ears, until I found the ringing was not in my ears. It was a low, dull sound. Oh God! I foamed! I raved! I swore! I felt that I must scream or die!